Hi everyone. I know I haven't actually done a lot of the business side of blueprints, so I am back. Um, Next, we're going to work on the audience personas of a business whenever you're doing marketing. So, we're going to do two of them. Um, let's move these down here. Okay, layouts right. And that'll be fine. Okay, so what we're going to do, basically, whenever we're doing a persona, especially with this type of market and marketing strategy, as well as brand strategy, we're wanting to focus on both the customer that we're serving right now, which in this case would probably be someone like Herbert Sinclair, um, since he is the uh, post baron um, of the estate. And so we'll probably want to look into like what are some of his characteristics, and how are we reaching him now, and then also look at create another persona and base that off of maybe more of someone like Simon, who has just entered into this heirship, into this baronship. Will probably advance his age a little bit, just because as far as a in the real estate world, you probably aren't going to get an inheritance if you're very young, um, in that sense. And so maybe upping his uh, age a little bit to someone who is maybe like 20 or 30, someone who where you are more likely to see someone who is like looking for a home or looking for a bigger estate, even if that is not always feasible. Because I know a lot of in the market right now, 20 and 30-year olds, it's really hard to find a house, let alone a large estate, whether that be land or an actual home. If especially if you're in um, the states or um, just in more kind of more populated areas, and well off areas, um, and whatnot. It's just the economy is not great enough to always get that. You're more likely to rent or lease, and so on and so forth. But again, if that's going to be our kind of persona, um, we'll just have to up the age kind of bracket and maybe see kind of where it goes. But we'll start with Herbert, with that kind of persona and see where that leads us first. Um, so we'll do this. Persona 1, and that's Herbert. Okay, so whenever we're making a persona, I like to do it in um, kind of demographics, as far as this can be a lot of aspects, such as like things that I basically refer to this as anything that you can find on either a tax return or a driver's license, or anything that is kind of numerical a lot of the times. Um, and then you're also going to do psychographics. This is more about what is kind of beneath the surface. Um, Things like that you would have to actually talk to them to know more about within their personality. Um, so, let's say an example, uh, demographics would probably be, again, his age. So, we'll say, we'll kind of de age him a little bit probably, um, and say he's maybe 75. You know, he's fairly elderly, probably has done a lot. He's probably retired, all of that kind of stuff. So he's 75. Let's say he's retired. Um, we know he's part of the peerage. I think I'm saying that right. I hope I'm saying that right. Again, I'm in the States. We do not have this. We don't have barons and everything. So if you're from a European country, please let me know in the comments, and tell me if that's right or not. I'll write down that he's a baron. As far as like saying like what his occupation is. Um, Again, so we can say that he's fairly well off. He's probably making, I don't really know how much you could possibly make at that with that. Um, but if it's a 45 room estate, and I just recently found out I've been watching Lord Minion 77's run throughs of this game, and I think it said it was he used one of the library books, and so he found out I think it's like an 80-acre estate. So um, we'll put I'll put this in psychographics because this would be something that you would 45 rooms and 80 acres. Let's say with that, it's probably easy to say like maybe it's like 100K. I'm probably undershooting that so much. But you know, that's at least like a good ground point. Um, and we can say, you know, you have a large family. Or maybe not a large family, but you have extended family as far as nieces, nephews, grandchildren, that kind of thing. So I'll say heirs. Let's kind of stop for there. Okay, so psychographics, like I said, they have a large manor. We've learned while going in the tomb that he really enjoys nature. Then he also writes. He's a columnist for a local paper. He likes puzzles. There's kind of like puzzles of his home. There's puzzles of like thinking, like kind of tinkering puzzles. Yeah, there's just he does different types of puzzles. So it's not just the same like, oh, like we have to find this and find this and all this kind of stuff. It's not just scavenger hunts. Oh, we should probably put that because there is that. Thank you. Autocomplete. Let's see what else. We can say that he's transitioning in like technology. So because he was moving into like putting in the what was it, the like the groundskeepers stuff. He was moving that more electric. He was moving, so not everything was like gaslit lamps or candles or anything like that. He had everything um, into the uh, I'm gonna call the electric room, but that's not it. The security room and stuff like that. So, you know, he was transitioning, making it more modern, um, modernizing um, things. So there's that. Um, what else could we say? Um, we could say on the demographics maybe that probably that he would have a staff on hand with a 45 room house. I would hope so. Maybe within 80 acres. I would hope so. That's a lot of groundwork and whatnot. So you would probably end up having money from that. Um, okay, so we'll probably stop with that. Um, as far as with Herbert. Okay, then we're also going to do Persona 2. And that's going to be Simon, and we're going to make him older. And again, it's going to be, we're going to make demographics. And psychographics. Okay, so for this instance, I'm going to say maybe Simon is like 35. Again, that kind of gives us a little more wiggle room. He's probably more established in his career. He is still probably part of the peerage. But he's probably, I would feel like, so his mom was a writer, and he's fairly clever. So I would say he's probably educated. We can maybe speculate that at least he has like probably a college degree, if not an advanced degree. Then, so he probably is doing something else to bide his time. He's also, he's working somehow, but we don't know how. We know he likes solving puzzles. We know he likes kind of exploring. So, you know, maybe he's trying something new. Maybe he's an entrepreneur or something. Maybe he's a writer himself after his mom. Again, so maybe he's probably not making, I would say he's probably not making as much as his uncle or his great uncle. He's not making as much as Herbert. So I would probably say lower it and say I'll probably have to raise Herbert's when we go back. But let's say, actually, okay, let's rephrase that. So let's say Simon is making 100K. And then go back to Herbert and say maybe he's making Oh, let's make him make 500K or something. Again, like substantially like big bracket of difference, but still enough to say, okay, you're doing something really different to really make this something substantially different kind of wage gap. Um, and then, okay, so he also would have to have a staff. He might not have as much as Herbert. Okay, so psychographics, like I said, he probably likes to explore a lot. He also probably likes nature, um, due to him being okay with like being in tent and all that kind of stuff while he's doing this. Um, and so he's very curious. Um, okay, let's say Simon is also he's also probably very tech savvy, especially due to the generation gap. Uh, a lot younger generations are going to be more kind of adept to using technology, using um, like, you know, my niece is probably 4 years old right now, and I say probably, she is 4 years old. Um, and she knows how to probably work an iPhone better than her mom, who is my sister. And so just knowing that while we kind of grew up with cell phones and we had them growing up, we did not have iPhones necessarily growing up. I didn't have an iPhone until I got into college. So Simon probably has grown up with tech. He knows the security rooms. He knows how to work with that. He knows how to work all this lab equipment. All of this lab equipment looks like dial up when I look at it on these computer screens. So it's kind of funny. But he's probably very tech savvy. Um, let's see. What else? What kind of behind the scenes kind of mentalities that Simon would have that would be important to know, like when starting a business, when reaching out to them. Um, Again, like losing his mom, you would probably also think he might be a little bit more introverted. Again, curious and he wants to explore, but he's probably like very in his head. Um, so, that being said, his demographics, he probably has a small family. Or a group. Which could mean small group of friends, small uh, acquaintances that you have. What else? What else would they do? He's probably okay with change, so especially with the everlasting changes to his house, um, he'd probably have to learn how to be okay with that. Um, let's see. Okay. What else? Okay, so we forgot to say Herbert is also project educated. He probably has an advanced degree. I could see that. Um, because he has also said that, you know, they are very learned, very uh, I mean, they are very educated. They are very uh, talented when it comes to like learning new things and using their minds. Um, so, um, he probably is. He's probably a little bit extroverted. Um, but he probably went a little bit more introverted after like the death of his wife is what it seems like, because he closed off a whole wing for her um after she died, or after uh his niece died. I'm not really sure. He refers to they refer to her ladyship, and so I'm not sure if that's towards Mary or if that means towards his wife. um could really be both. um but so we'll kind of leave that there, which makes sense. Like you kind of like introvert like and go into yourself after a death of a loved one. That makes sense. um let's see what else would be good to know when we're talking to her, or when we're like trying to talk to him about um doing anything. So we have some of the logs from the mine uh excavators, I think. So, and again, from also, I remember the groundskeeper, and even Miss Babbage. So just kind of like playing off of them and seeing where they end up going with how they talk about Herbert or Simon, um, and how they really want to do interactions with them. Um, so I would probably say like need support or guidance. Um, because you see that happen with the letter from his dad in the mailroom, and then you also see this with um, any verbiage usually happening from Miss Babbage, just kind of like encouraging him and saying, you know, you can do this. Like we're all behind you. And a lot of that, again, he really likes exploring, so that really helps, I would think. But just knowing he has a good support system would, uh, and people behind him to give him that support would be really helpful. Again, building off of that like small family or that group, um, to really kind of build his character. Um, okay, so another good thing to kind of put in here is what are some not only what are some of the demographics and psychographics that they have currently to talk to them, but also what are their kind of dreams when working with you. So we know um, for Simon, like it's basically kind of like solving the puzzle on an outward kind of like glance. Um, he wants to learn more about his family. Um, so and that kind of relates to the story of the architecture group. They thrive on kind of like keeping things private, um, being very like if we look at our store at some of our values, like it's that safety, that traditionalism, openness. They want to like build off of those things with our customers. So um, they want, so for Simon, um, he values trust. Um, he would probably value, what are some of his values that he would have? He would probably end up valuing, um, again, like curiosity. Um, he would probably want to know just like, just being like very close knit. Um, just with his relationship with his parents and with um, kind of, again, that trust that he has to have with some certain people, I think is really kind of something that he would really want to end up having. Again, with Herbert, um, you know, he would also probably value trust. He obviously saw it in his valet a lot. Once we saw the servants' quarters and the letter that he left for him. Um, and so he would, I would probably also say maybe like service for him. Um, when we were in the tomb and we read his like letter for them, or for Simon, um, he was talking about, having that sense of duty. I've also been watching a lot of the Crown clips off of Facebook, and so they talk a lot about being in that peerage, being having that sense of duty, um, and really serving like someone other than yourself, and serving something other than your self interest. Um, and so uh, just kind of keeping that in mind. Um, then he would probably also do he would also probably do something like close knit, but I would also probably say he would also want to be friendly. Um, so maybe more networking. Um, because that's what a lot of his puzzles come from. Like it comes from other people, um, showing that like they can bring in those ideas, and they can collaborate on those things. He brings in a lot of experts. Um, so maybe collaboration would be a good value for him. Um, okay, and then okay, let's kind of recap a little bit. Okay, so basically, from these two personas, we're basically trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to eventually talk to these people? How are we going to identify our ideals personas, um, whenever we're out looking for a client or an audience member? And so these would kind of be, we would end up starting and saying, cool, we would maybe start with Herbert, um, and we can mark that. Um, because again, we want to kind of de-age our persona. Right now, we are at Herbert's level. We are at a 75 aged persona that might not necessarily sustain us in the long term, as far as finding sustainable income. Um, and they might not, might need more like repairs. They might need more um, upkeep rather than creating something new. Um, and so this would be something where, um, let's kind of like insert another text box right here, um, where again, their needs are going to be more, like I mentioned, it's going to be upkeep to the estate. You're going to need grounds work or transition work, like her work did, where, you know, they put more technology in. With modernization, I don't like how big these are. Things like that. And so, but if you end up having someone like Simon, you're still likely to have some of that upkeep, but you're still also going to have more options to say, let's build something from scratch. Again, because this is where that exploration, that curiosity kind of comes into play, and saying, okay, I have time. I can build you know, an actual security room. I can build a guest house. I can build a mausoleum on my property, a shrine, whatever you really want. And so they have that time to build from scratch and like say, okay, I want to do this renovation, but I want to build it from scratch versus do an upkeep of what is already there. Um, so build from scratch. And finding land. Again, that was part of our kind of storyline for this company, was they could find land and they could start from the ground up. I'll say upkeep as well, but like again, additions and whatnot for the build from scratch. Um, and then again, with needs, it's just like, okay, you have kind of with like having that support and guidance, you end up having, well, again, like you're just making it, you're starting off more modern. Um, so you're starting with new materials. Um, and this one you're having to integrate them. So if you ended up doing like more eco-friendly wood-based flooring, or um, again, like a lot of the electrical work, that's more integration of that new material versus saying, um, okay, we're going to start out with this and hopefully it lasts you a long time, um, or it will last you a long time, uh, and seeing kind of how that transforms like a traditional um, house into a more modern house, but still keeping with that time frame of like possibly when it was made. Um, so just but keeping with the traditionalism. Okay, so this is fairly short as far as a persona can be. You can make this very, very detailed and a lot more comprehensive. This is totally dependent on your kind of style as far as really how you want your brand or your business to go into. But you also want to know, like, again, how are you talking to to your audience? How are you kind of transitioning into your audience? Um, how do you want your audience to transition with you through your process, through your business? Um, and so you always want to keep that kind of in mind whenever you're saying, cool, what are our demographics? What are our psychographics? Again, kind of like we did with Herbert and Simon, we're starting with Herbert and we're wanting to go more towards Simon. So, say Herbert might be taking up 70% of our market right now, and we want to flip that and say Simon now needs to take up 70% and Herbert needs to take up the other 30%, um, because that's going to be where the money is going to come in. And so, seeing how those trends and how those uh, different aspects kind of play a part in those roles is really important, just both with trends and how you really want your market to kind of evolve, um, or your business and your industry, and how it's evolving throughout different times. So um, that's going to be it for our personas, and hopefully I will see you guys for our next lesson. Bye.